The Greater Evil by Backlash91. Twilight shoved the door shut with a loud slam and bolted it tight. Her breath exited her throat in short bursts as she galloped down the long hallway. The door wouldn't last long. It had all gone wrong so fast. An unknown illness with no known starting location that overcame ponies horrifically quick had almost completely destroyed their populace in under 48 hours. She was barely able to escape, mostly unscathed, already sporting scratches and cuts from her frantic dash for safety. Sadly, the military site she'd been working at wasn't as secure as her higher-ups had assured her. They trusted their guns and soldiers to fix it. Yeah, a lot of good that did them, when bullets mean nothing to zombies. Twilight had been working in the upper floors of the base when the alarm was raised, only to be suddenly killed off by the horde of zombies swarming towards the gates, effectively killing the power lines that gave the site its electricity. In short and quick succession, they'd overrun the gate guards and began shattering through the lower levels, faster than most ponies could react. Twilight had been lucky to reach the elevator in time before it disappeared into the depths of the compound. Watching 3 of her co-workers scream for her to hold the door open as the horde overtook them didn't make her inside sit well. She had few seconds to grasp and stare wide-eyed at the floor, her legs held on either side of her, gripping the metal rail. That, however, was only a short-lived breath of comfort, as she heard the elevator defense doors above come crashing down onto the metal box she was traveling in, and about 5 zombies. She had waited with bated breath as the machine ground down several floors before coming to a stop. The furious scrabbling and snarling above her only growing more frustrating as it went deeper into the compound. She internally gulped as the placard that floated into view as the elevator came to a slow, whining stop. Floor 7, Criminal Detainment Facility. Twilight Sparkle, for once in her life, did not wait to question if she had clearance. She leapt through the opening doors just as the elevator ceiling groaned horribly and crashed down where she'd been standing, covered in angry, gnashing zombies. They took one glimpse at her, and she held back a shriek as her eyes widened in hunger. She took off like a bullet escaping a gun barrel. The terrified mare dodged around corners and down a nearby stairwell. She needed an exit, and fast. The hallway was lined with several large cells that were either housed or held criminals of the state. Any of them could do as much harm to her as the abominations, her former co-workers, behind her. So her options were either death by being torn apart, or eaten alive, or even worse. In her terror, she hadn't been paying attention to the paths in front of her and tripped over a nearby fallen cart that lay in the way. Shaking herself, she flipped over just in time to see a group of zombie ponies round the corner, their legs and barrels having missing flesh, ripped open organs and visible bones protruding from their corpses. Foaming mouths and blank eyes that seemed to stare right through her. She gasped and they snapped their eyes to her. With guttural snarls like wild animals, the dead lunged as a unit. A mass of flesh and hunger at the poor mare. This was it. They were too close, and magic had proven just as ineffective to them as bullets or other weapons. The zombies descended, and Twilight screamed, only to have a hoof come from behind her and yank her by the neck out of harm's way. She coughed as she hit the floor on her side. A collection of loud explosions rang in her ears, and bright flashes of red bounced off the momentarily lit walls. Then silence. She could hear breathing near her, and it seemed like the darkness of the cells she'd come into wasn't natural. Normal shadows had ambient light. These didn't. And instead they sucked all the light from around them. That was other, odd. Wait. It moved? Weird glowing red veins floated before her in no particular pattern, and for a moment she was fascinated by them, poking them with a hoof gently. "That is my mane you're touching, mare." Twilight's breath hitched in her throat. She whipped around to see a set of red and green eyes, seemingly floating among the glowing veins in darkness. They watched her with a feeling of pure anger and malice so permeable that it hit her like waves crashing against the shore of the beach. She took a visible step back. Her body began to shake. You are... The shadow moved like smoke, shifting and changing, and after a second or two coalesced into a physical body before her, towering over Twilight by a good 1.5 feet. She beheld the stallion of terror itself, gray fur, a black mane, and a tail that shrouded the room in perpetual darkness, and a sharpened horn made of blood, bone, and crystal. Said horn lit up, bathing her in a neon crimson light, making his visage even more terrifying. "I am King Sombra, yes. It is nice to know I'm still remembered by the above dwellers." He stepped to her, leaning forward. He neither grimaced nor grinned, simply watched her for a time before sitting. "Normally you state your name as well, unless customs are different. I would not know." Twilight nodded but couldn't find herself to speak. Out of all the selves she could have chosen, she had to get pulled into one with a being far older, wiser, and stronger than her by millennia. Of course she did. Fate hated her. She sucked in a deep breath and almost choked as the stallion's natural aura of malice seemed to follow suit with the air. She coughed once or twice quietly. Twilight Sparkle, my name's... "I know who you are, child," Sombra scoffed, and Twilight physically twitched. "Then why did you ask?" Sombra let the hint of a smile grace his lips as he looked past her and out the bars, the red lightning accentuating his features and making his smile take on a far grimmer aspect. "Proper etiquette demands it," he said coyly. She went to retort, but found something far more important coming to the forefront of her mind. Sombra's horn was glowing, meaning he was doing magic. That couldn't be possible if he was still in his cell, though. The bars were magically enchanted to react if he tried. Not only that, but they were supposed to restrain him, and he was blatantly not restrained. She looked back at the bars and noted that the metal, while normally glowing with blue and gold magic, showed no signs of the glowing runes or life. Right. Power failure. She grimaced. Pinned her ears back. At least the zombies were gone. Well, sort of. They were splattered all over the place. Twilight looked at the puddle of blood and gore that coated the floor, the walls, and the ceiling, and she gagged. She turned back to the stallion. What did you do to them?" Sombra's tiny grin tripled in length and size until it was a creepy smile that no one liked to see, and stepped up next to her, his voice like a snake whispering in her ear. "Simple. I took their innards and I made them their outards. In layman terms, I blew them up from the inside out." He chuckled, and she gagged again and shivered. Twilight stepped away from him and glared. "You're horrible," she whispered. In response, his eyes gained a merry little twinkle that Twilight noted felt so very wrong. With a Cheshire smile, he aimed at her. He slid his hoof down one of the cell bars slowly, his eyes following its path and his ears twitching as the metal made little clinking noises every time his hoof found a dent or a chip missing. "Am I? I hadn't noticed. I was paying more attention to the fact that I saved your life, and so far have not hurt you. Normally anyone who trespasses an inch within my cell gets bitten." He leaned in, and rather quickly, and let his breath brush her ear tips. "And I like to bite mares. A lot. Twilight shot towards the bars and tried to squeeze past them in an attempt to escape. She was surprised to see that Sombra neither stopped her nor tried to hurt her in any way. He was too busy laughing harshly to do so anyhow. I like you, Twilight. You've got guts. Not something I can say for them, he said, snidely pointing at the visceral content she was standing in now. She scowled and growled at him. You're despicable, Sombra. These ponies were my friends. He grinned. Oh, I know, but I'm curious. Why are you friends with dead ponies? Are they your friends too? He pointed down the hall, and Twilight shrieked when she saw 3 more zombies barreling towards her. My doors are open if you need the help. All you have to say is, "Pretty please, mister." So Twilight dove past the bars before he could finish his sentence and landed smack dab with her back against his chest, and her hooves trying to push her as far away from the bars as they could. Kill him, she shrieked in fright. Sombra grinned, shrugged, and angled his horn at the creatures, marring his doorstep. His chest puffed up proudly, and his ears stood straight. That's close enough. 3 guttural explosions later, the pair were once again alone. Twilight sighed and rested her head against the stallion's chest for grumbling, until she realized what she was doing and lunged backwards. Sombra snorted, lifting a hoof mockingly to his chest as if affronted. Chumpy, aren't you? You act like I was going to do something to you. Twilight growled. You are the stallion of horror, the tyrant king of the Crystal Empire. I wouldn't put it past you to try. Sombra's grin disappeared, and in its place he leveled a glare at her, effectively shutting her up. The room darkened suddenly. Twilight blinked as she saw her own breath come out in a puff. The temperature had dropped. Twilight gulped. First of all, let's get one thing straight, girl. I just saved your life again. I didn't have to do that. I could have laughed as they ripped you to shreds, then blown them up, and then reanimated your flesh and rebuilt you just to do it all again. Don't spit on my kindness by insulting me the moment I help you. He was almost snarling by the time he finished, his frame and body towering over her as Twilight quickly lowered herself to the floor with fright. The show of submission seemed to appease his anger, and he closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in deeply before snorting and looking behind her. Secondly, you need to set your priorities straight right now. Am I more of a problem than those zombies? Because I can honestly tell you right now, I have no current intentions of killing or harming you, child. Twilight watched as he walked up and sat in front of her, frowning as more zombies rounded the corner to a cell. Twilight felt his magic aura pull her close to him again as he leveled his horn at them, his voice but a calm wave before the storm as he channeled his dark magic. Ask yourself this, Twilight. What is the greater evil now?
Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please support the channel by subscribing and leaving a like. Every little bit helps. So take care and see you next time.